Heyo, you're tuning into Toasted Time, where I cook your time with some Reddit stories. Right now we've got relationships, where someone asks, what are our thoughts on living together before marriage? Our first story is by Spiritual Drama. So, a few months ago I moved out of my parents' home after finishing college, and me and my boyfriend started living together. We have been together for about 5 years, and my parents are very opposed to this and have the "you gotta get married before living together" point of view. Every day when I'm talking to my parents on the phone, they keep telling me that my boyfriend is now never gonna marry me because why would he marry you when you're now living with him and acting like a wife? And that he's getting all the wife benefits without having to marry me. I don't really understand this because I don't feel like he's getting any benefit by not being married to me. I just live there and help out with chores and some groceries and a bit of the rent. We have discussed marriage, and he has stated that he plans to marry me. He told me that he wanted to live together before marriage and get our finances straight before we get married, and he wants to pay for the wedding. Personally, I don't mind living together before marrying as long as I know that the marriage is in the future, as I do want to get married. It just upsets me that my parents keep berating my relationship because me and him live together. They keep telling me that he's just gonna use me to help with chores and rent and then just kick me out when he doesn't want me there anymore. I don't understand why they think this when I have a cousin who lived with her husband for years and then they got married and now have a child. What do you all think about this? Did any of you live together before marriage? Now, before we move on to comments, I'm going to give my own opinion on this. And my opinion is that you should live together before you get married because you're fence sitting at that rate if you don't live together, because you're in the relationship, but you're not going to the extremes to find out what the extremes are within the relationship. So if you don't live with him if you don't live together, then you're not going to know them 100%, and then you're going to get married to someone who you don't know 100%, and then just pray that they're the right person and they're good. But if you live together, then you get to know them 100%, and then you have assurance that who you're marrying is who you know you're marrying. Like, because some people go from like looking like a class act in person, but then their house is a complete and utter mess. And just being able to live with them gets rid of that problem to where they're not just a class act, but they just live a class act. So I am absolutely for the whole entire living together before marriage, because that marriage is a costly expense to not prepare for, right? Like, could you imagine getting married to someone and then you find out that they're an utter slob at home and you're like, okay, I don't want to be married to this person anymore, but now you have to get divorced, and it's a huge expense for no reason at that rate. Anywho, let us continue on to the comments. But hold on, before we go there, tell me what you think on my opinion on that. Do you disagree? Do you agree? Let me know. But continuing on, I think you learn a lot about yourself and the person you're living with. Also, if you're in the US and a lot of other places, your parents are very out of touch with cultural norms. I agree, and yes, I am from the USA. I don't think I've met someone who hasn't lived with their husband before marriage besides my parents, lol. And strange fact about my parents is, they hate each other, and my mom found out my dad was a slob once they married and started living together. So I don't know why they don't like the idea of learning your partner's living habits before getting married. I'd mention that to her. Be direct and say that you don't want a relationship like theirs, so you'd like to live together and make sure you're compatible, that you'll be true partners for each other. And then someone down below hits the nail on the coffin for what I'm thinking on this whole entire thing. Sometimes, whether consciously or subconsciously, people do genuinely try to create the same circumstances for others that they went through to either feel less alone or because they can't stand to see someone else do better than them. I'm not saying that's definitely what your parents are doing, but I do think it is very important to keep in mind that as you move forward in life, some people legitimately cannot be comfortable around happiness. It's called self-sabotage and can pull very easily onto you if you're not careful. And your parents need to understand, if all of these horrible fears they have do end up happening, it is because of the type of person hubby is and would absolutely, without a doubt, happen even though you are married. It happens either way. A breakup is much cheaper than a divorce, so that's much more preferable. Don't think marriage fixes anything. They've taught you it does not. If he can't have husband behavior before the ring, he won't have it after. In a not so nice way, it sounds like your mother fridged up her life and your father has too. And instead of encouraging you not to end up like them, they'd rather not feel alone in their poor choices, and mind you, their lives are fridged because they still choose to remain miserable. There truly are people who love to be just unhappy all the time. They cannot have peace, and I don't know why. Just know that I have met many of them, including in my own family. That is their choice. I'm sorry. Definitely live with hubby before marriage. Best of luck to you too. And before we move on to the next story, I really want to point out, if he can't have husband behavior before the ring, he won't have it after. Because that is a very perfect line. And I do not think that this is just a one-way street of husband behavior. This also goes for wife behavior. If you're dating someone and they're not giving the same treatment from now and then after marriage, then who are you dating at that point? Because you don't know who they are at that rate. If they go from point A to point B when you marry them, who did you marry? You married someone completely different from who you were dating because they changed just because you got the ring. And that makes no sense. You're at that rate asking to get divorced. So I absolutely agree with the whole entire, if they can't have husband or wife behavior before the ring, they don't have it after. Because who are you marrying at that rate? Because you don't know. There's someone completely different. Does that make sense? Alright, okay, anywho, continuing on to the next story. And the next story comes from Inside Camp. And this story is a little bit of a short one, but I just wanted to include it because, it has an important message at the end. I met him on an app 3 months ago. He said he was a doctor and that he did his undergrad in biology at an Ivy League school. Everything was going great. The S was fantastic and he was very romantic, although he didn't like to spend a lot of money on me. Last night, I just happened to walk into a Taco Bell and saw him working there behind the counter. We looked at each other and went up and ordered without addressing him. Then I went home to process what I'd seen. I tried calling him today, but he wouldn't answer. How could he lie to me like this? Do men do this often? I'm in absolute shock. Should I just forgive him for lying and move on with the relationship, or should I just dump him? I'm not sure if I would have given him the chance if I knew he worked at Taco Bell from the start, but I'm in love with him at this point. What do I do once I manage to talk to him again? And as I said, short and sweet. My answer, just dead the relationship. He lied. You can't trust him. He's an untrustworthy person at that rate. I don't have anything else to say. He's a liar. You can't trust him. You should not be with him, period, end of statement. Just move on, dead the relationship, and continue living. But we're gonna read one comment. What is there to talk about? He told you a huge lie, so who knows what other lies he's told you? You've only been dating a few months, so cut your losses. Years ago, I dated a guy who told me he was a creative director at a film and entertainment company. We dated only briefly. He had a lot of emotional problems. Years later, in a strange coincidence, the same guy applied to be my boss's personal assistant. I was doing the hiring. And I learned that all of that was a complete lie. He was basically a production assistant. Yeah, sometimes guys lie about their job to seem more attractive. And so yeah, it is pretty much agreed down in the comments, just the relationship. He lied, you can't trust him, move on. And for the men out there, don't lie about the job you have. That's just weird behavior. Be honest about it, and if you're being honest, good chance that they might just not date you because of you being honest and not saying, oh, I'm a doctor, oh, I'm an executive or something. Sure, they may not date you because you didn't say that. But at the same time, why would you want to date someone who doesn't want you for who you are and what you're doing in life at that rate? Does that make sense? Why would you want to date someone who doesn't want to date who you are at your point in life? That doesn't make sense. And it's not going to work out for a long-term relationship at that rate. So, yeah, just don't lie. Don't lie when you're dating someone. That is just, in general, good advice, Always good to not lie. Just end all be all. Don't lie. Be honest. Alright, continuing on. Now, before we continue on, I just want to ask that if you are enjoying this so far, that you consider recommending this channel to friends and family, or just people you know, because the help for this channel is greatly appreciated. So, to continue on, and for the final story, which comes from Instruction Due. My husband messaged on his friends group chat that marriage is overrated, whilst we were on our honeymoon because we had a few disagreements at the time. I'm utterly hurt and feel completely disrespected. These arguments were mostly about the following topics. 1. As a newly married couple, we were spending a week during our honeymoon staying over with his aunties and uncle. We went to his home country. I don't speak the language and it was extremely awkward and I had no privacy. We didn't even plan the honeymoon together. His friend had recently gotten married as well and was headed to the same place, so he and my husband just copied this idea from him and decided everything himself. His friend ended up going to Dubai, which was a much lovelier experience for the other couple. When we headed to another part of the country alone, he was trying to do everything under the sun rather than spend time indoors with me. I felt like I received absolutely no love. We were constantly out doing this activity and that activity. This wasn't how I imagined my honeymoon with my husband to be. Any other argument that occurred were because the truth of it is I didn't feel like my husband was giving me much attention. I tried to keep up, but the truth is I was utterly upset. The comment made has hurt me deeply, and honestly, I don't feel like I can look at him the same. He broke my trust completely. Am I overreacting to his comment, and how do I overcome the hurt within myself? And I'll be completely honest, guys, I did actually not plan these two stories to work, or I did not plan this story and the first story to intertwine perfectly, but they do. This is the whole entire scenario of the husband being someone completely different prior to marriage, and then completely flipping over after marriage. Like, the dude got married to someone and then expected everything to be just hunky-dory and go off to La La Land. Like, no, you married who you married. You should have known that they wouldn't have changed after marriage, because you shouldn't change who you are after marriage, because once again, who are you marrying at that rate? You don't know. The husband knew who he was marrying. He was marrying the girl who he has been dating for I don't know how long. Meanwhile, OP here has been dating this dude, and then now no longer knows who this dude is because he completely changed who he was. He, I'm assuming, was someone who spent indoor time with OP, and now that they're after marriage on the honeymoon, he's out and about doing this, that, and the other thing. Like, he is not giving any room for breathing. And OP has married someone who she doesn't even know. And as I stated, he is asking for a divorce at this rate. And if the dude is able to take him onto a trip to Dubai, I don't know what the price of that is, but I'm assuming that a divorce would be costly at that rate. But, I mean, yeah, costly at that rate. If it is costly, just any amount per se, why would you be someone completely different? That doesn't make sense. Like, make it make sense. You be someone prior to marriage, and then all of a sudden you get married and you just completely flip who you are, and you become this extroverted, complete nut job going to this, that, and the other thing. Like, that is not how you make a relationship stand strong. That is a house built on sand, not a house built on rocks. That is a house that is going to be flooded, going to be whisked away with the wind, and it's not going to exist. Because how can a strong foundation exist if it is built on sand? It can't. The dude is completely a fake of who he once was, and OP has married someone who she doesn't know. Anyways, let me know what you guys are thinking down below. Anywho. Now, before I end this off, I just want to make it known that I have a Patreon where I'll be posting 3 videos a day, and just to cover the bases, I'll have you know that the 2 videos a day is still going on. But if you want to support me and get a little more content, then you can go over there for the low price of $1. And, as always, the support is really appreciated and will in turn be used to make better and better content as the days go on. But, enough of that. That is about it for those stories today, and if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe to become a fellow breadbag. Though, aside from that, I post 2 new videos every day on YouTube, so I hope to see you next time toasting session. But until then, have a good one.